Jackie Chan enters a luxurious restaurant in the heart of the city, wearing simple, rumpled clothes as if he had just come from an ordinary day. He chooses a discreet table, trying to go unnoticed, while the sparkle of the crystal chandeliers illuminates every detail around him. However, before you can even place your order, a waitress approaches you with a disdainful look and an arrogant attitude. "Are you sure you can afford to be here?" she says, in a tone full of irony, loud enough for other customers to hear. What happens next leaves everyone in the restaurant in complete silence and reveals a truth that changes everything. Before we continue this story, tell us, where are you watching from? If you like stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we'll have another exciting narrative for you. The Lumiere restaurant was a true symbol of sophistication in Beverly Hills. Located on one of the city's most prestigious avenues, its large windows offered a breathtaking view of the streets lit up by lavish neon signs and slowly gliding sports cars. But Lumiere wasn't just a restaurant. It was a destination for those who wanted to be seen and admired. Ashley, one of Lumiere's most experienced waitresses, walked confidently through the hall, her rehearsed, impeccable smile reinforcing her image of efficiency and control. Working there wasn't just a job. For her, it was a privilege, something she made a point of mentioning whenever possible. But behind the professional facade, Ashley carried an excessive pride which often turned into arrogance. She had a special talent for quickly judging clients, mentally classifying them based on their clothes, behavior, and appearance. "Some people just don't belong here," she often thought. The glass door of the restaurant opened softly and a man walked in. He was wearing worn jeans, a simple shirt, and a comfortable jacket without any luxury brand logos. His presence was discreet, almost imperceptible as he walked calmly up to the reception desk. Jackie Chan, one of Hollywood's best-known stars, had never been a fan of ostentation. His reserved personality contrasted sharply with the extravagant glitz of Beverly Hills, and at that moment, he seemed like just another ordinary customer. Ashley was busy discussing a VIP reservation with a colleague when she noticed him. Suddenly, she interrupted the conversation and narrowed her eyes, appraising him with a look full of contempt. "He definitely doesn't fit the profile of our clients," she thought, without hiding her reaction. With a forced smile that disappeared almost instantly, she turned to him. "Good evening," she said dryly. "How can I help you?" "I'd like a table, please," replied Jackie, politely and calmly. Ashley raised an eyebrow as if he had just heard something absurd. "Are you sure you're in the right place? This is a very exclusive restaurant, you know." Jackie kept her calm smile and replied, "Yes, this is the place." Ashley let out a short, incredulous laugh, shaking her head. "Right. Wait a minute, I need to check something." She turned quickly and went to the booking system, typing in his name with an exaggeratedly theatrical expression. Nothing came up. Rolling her eyes, she returned to the lounge with an even more irritated expression. "As I suspected, you don't have a reservation. We have a few tables available, but be aware that this is not a casual restaurant." Jackie remained unfazed. "I'd like to have dinner here." With an exaggerated sigh, Ashley picked up a menu and said with false sympathy, "All right, but I'm gonna have to put you somewhere more suitable." She moved quickly through the restaurant, not bothering to look back. She stopped at the farthest and least attractive table in the room, throwing the menu down hard on the table. "Here it is. This place is perfect for you," she said, her tone sweet but laced with sarcasm. "If you need anything, just call me. But only if you have to, okay?" Jackie maintained his serene smile, ignoring her rude tone. "Thanks, Jackie. I'm sure it will be an interesting experience." As she walked away, Ashley muttered to a couple nearby in a mocking tone, "He won't last 5 minutes here. I bet he leaves as soon as he opens the menu." On the other side of the restaurant, Jackie calmly opened the menu, leisurely looking through the options. Ambient music filled the air, but her posture conveyed something different, an unshakable tranquility, as if nothing could get in her way. Across the room, Ashley watched with a smile of superiority, certain that this mysterious man would soon ask for the bill and leave discreetly. With quick mechanical steps, she led Jackie through the restaurant without even looking at him. Instead of choosing a central table where the golden light of the chandeliers highlighted the sophistication of the ambiance, she took him to the furthest and most poorly lit corner of the place, a table near the kitchen where the noise of dishes being washed and the muffled buzz of the staff created an atmosphere far removed from the refined atmosphere of the main dining room. "Here, this table should do," said Ashley, dropping the menu on the table with disdain. "I think you'll feel comfortable here. It's more private." Jackie looked at the table, then at Ashley, keeping her smile discreet. "Thank you," she replied calmly. She crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes, trying to decipher whether he was being sarcastic or just naive. "You're welcome," he said, his voice laced with irony. "Just so you know, we usually reserve these tables for special cases, but since we don't have any reservations tonight, you can have it." Spinning on his heels, he hurried away without giving her a chance to reply. When Ashley returned to take the order, his posture became even crueler. With an exaggerated gesture, he pulled out his notepad and glared at Jackie. "Have you decided what you want?" she asked, without even disguising the boredom in her voice. "Or would you prefer a suggestion?" Jackie looked at the menu calmly and pointed to one of the restaurant's most expensive dishes. "I'd like to try this one." Ashley covered her mouth with her hand, trying to hide a debauched laugh. "Oh, of course. The filet de Rossini, a classic," he said with a condescending tone. "Just to confirm, sir, you know that this dish costs $350, right?" "Yes, it looks delicious," replied Jackie, without losing her composure. She tilted her head and smiled mischievously. "Right. Just to make sure there's no misunderstanding later, I suggest checking the prices again. We don't want any nasty surprises," but Jackie, impassive, remained serene. "I'm sure," Ashley sighed theatrically, as if he were doing her a big favor, and wrote down the order. "As you wish. But I must warn you that our chef prefers dishes like this to be enjoyed by those who really understand haute cuisine. I hope it meets your expectations." Before leaving, she stopped and added, with a venomous smile, "Oh, one more thing. The minimum tip expected here is 20%, so remember that while you're enjoying your meal." As he waited for his order, Jackie seemed completely oblivious to the discomfort Ashley was trying to create. He looked around calmly, admiring the decor and the soft music of the pianist. When the starter finally arrived, Ashley placed the plate on the table roughly, making it slide slightly. "Here's your starter. I hope you enjoy it, or at least know what you're eating," she said with a provocative smile. Jackie, without changing her expression, thanked him politely. "Thank you." Ashley leaned in slightly, as if trying to provoke him even more. "You know, many customers who order this dish end up not liking it. It's not exactly popular, but I think you'll do well. Good luck." Jackie kept her gaze calm and replied gently, "It looks excellent. Thank you for your attention." Frustrated at not being able to get Jackie off her back, Ashley quickly walked away, muttering to a colleague, "This guy can't last until the main course. He'll ask for the bill as soon as he sees how much it is." While Jackie calmly savored his entree on the other side of the room, Ashley watched him from afar, arms crossed and a smug smile on his face. "I bet he's going to ask for tap water. These guys always do," he commented to another employee who pretended not to hear, visibly uncomfortable with the situation. But while Ashley was amusing himself with his assumptions, an elderly customer sitting at a nearby table was watching the scene intently. Slowly, he raised his wine glass towards Jackie and silently toasted. Jackie reciprocated with a slight nod and a discreet smile. Dinner had only just begun, but Ashley's growing disdain would not go unnoticed for much longer. Determined to teach a lesson to the customer who, according to her, shouldn't have been there, Ashley delayed Jackie's order even further. Instead of taking the order directly to the kitchen, she decided to prioritize the customers she considered most important. She made a point of stopping to chat with an elegant couple in the center of the room, laughed exaggeratedly at a joke told by another customer, and even served a cocktail to a table that wasn't even her responsibility. Meanwhile, Jackie continued to wait patiently. And to provoke him even more, Ashley repeatedly passed by his table, pretending to be busy, looking away whenever he glanced at her. But even after a long wait, Jackie showed no sign of impatience. The white-haired man, meticulously combed and dressed in an elegant navy blue suit, watched the situation attentively. With a gentle smile, he approached Jackie's table. "Good evening, young lady. I hope I'm not intruding, but I've noticed that you've been neglected," he said, with a polite but firm tone. Jackie looked up and smiled calmly. "Good evening. Don't worry, everything's fine." He let out a discreet laugh and leaned in slightly, speaking in a lower tone. "You know, being treated like this is sometimes a test of patience, but I can tell you for sure, keeping your composure is a great sign of strength." Before Jackie could reply, Ashley suddenly appeared, interrupting the conversation. "Can I help you with something, sir?" she asked him, her voice more refined than usual but with a subtly authoritative tone. "I wouldn't want you to disturb our client." The elderly man narrowed his eyes but kept his composure. "Don't worry, miss. I was just saying hello to this gentleman. It's rare to find someone so serene." Ashley let out an exaggerated sigh, pointing to his desk. "Well, perhaps you'd better return to your table and enjoy your dinner," she said with impatience disguised as courtesy. Jackie watched everything in silence, her expression calm but analytical. "Thank you for coming all this way," he said to the elderly man with a slight nod. "It was a pleasure talking to you." The man nodded and returned to his table, casting one last disapproving glance at Ashley, who, in turn, seemed completely indifferent. When Ashley finally decided to bring Jackie's main course, he made a point of taking longer than necessary. First, she stopped in the kitchen to talk to the chefs, leaving the dish under the heat lamp for longer than it should have been. Then he returned to the lounge to serve another table, ignoring the ready meal waiting for him. When he finally brought the meal, he placed it in front of Jackie with an abrupt gesture. "Here's your order. I hope you enjoy it," he said with a wry smile. "Oh, and if you don't like it, please let us know. We can always suggest something more affordable." Jackie thanked him with the same serenity as before. "That sounds excellent, thank you." Ashley smiled cynically and leaned in slightly, lowering his voice enough for only him to hear. "Are you sure? It's a very sophisticated dish. It can be difficult for those who aren't used to it." Jackie remained unfazed. "I appreciate your concern." Frustrated at not being able to provoke any reaction, Ashley quickly walked away. At the bar, Ashley commented to a colleague who was trying unsuccessfully to ignore his comments. "He's pretending to be polite, but he's obviously uncomfortable," she said, letting out a laugh and placing an empty glass on the bar. "I bet he doesn't even know what he's eating. It's always like that with these guys. They come in here to feel important, but only end up embarrassing themselves." His colleague forced a smile, uncomfortable with the conversation. "Maybe he just wants dinner, Ashley. I think we should treat him like any other customer." Ashley looked at him incredulously. "Like any other customer? Have you seen his boots? He doesn't belong here. Frankly, if he can't handle it, he shouldn't even have come through that door." Meanwhile, the couple who had been watching the scene from the beginning were whispering amongst themselves. "She's awful," muttered the woman, shaking her head. "He's being so polite, and she keeps trying to humiliate him." "I agree," said the man, frowning. "It's shameful. I think we should talk to the manager." Back at the table, Jackie calmly finished her plate without showing the slightest annoyance. As she watched the sympathetic glances of some of the customers around her, her expression remained serene. Ashley, on the other hand, didn't hide his contempt when he returned to collect his plate. "So, did the dish meet your expectations?" she asked with a fake smile. Jackie looked straight into her eyes and replied, "It was excellent. Please take my compliments to the chef." Ashley raised her eyebrows, surprised that she hadn't managed to annoy him. As she walked away, she muttered to herself, but loud enough for the others to hear, "He may be smiling now, but let's see if he's still smiling when he gets the bill." Sitting at the table, Jackie kept her slight smile, observing everything around her. Her gaze suggested that the moment to act was approaching. Every provocation from Ashley only contributed to something that no one, not even she, could have predicted. Increasingly frustrated by Jackie's unwavering calm, Ashley decided to step up the provocation. As she poured the coffee he had ordered, she made a point of speaking loud enough for several tables around to hear. You know, it's hard to maintain our standards when anyone thinks they can come in here, she said to a colleague, glaring directly at Jackie. The colleague, visibly uncomfortable, tried to change the subject, but Ashley insisted. That's why we have a reservation policy. It helps us avoid situations like this. The customers nearby began to pay attention, some frowning, others whispering among themselves. The couple who had been following the situation from the beginning seemed indignant, exchanging glances. A woman at the next table put her hand to her chest and muttered, "This is absurd! She's trying to humiliate the man in public." Meanwhile, at another table, the elderly man, dressed in an elegant navy blue suit, took a sip of his wine, observing the situation with an expression of disapproval. He shook his head and muttered softly, "This has gone far enough." However, Jackie remained seated as calmly as ever, his eyes scanning his surroundings without showing the slightest irritation. His serenity seemed to bother Ashley even more, now that she could feel the stares of the other customers on her. Further along, a well-dressed woman whispered to her companion, "He must be someone important to keep that calm. Anyone else would have left by now." Her companion thought for a moment and replied, "Or maybe he's stronger than she thinks." Determined to provoke a reaction, Ashley returned to Jackie's table, this time with an exaggeratedly sarcastic smile. "I hope you're enjoying your experience," she said, her tone laced with irony. "After all, it's always interesting to have different types of people here. It adds a special touch to the atmosphere, don't you think?" Jackie raised her eyes slowly, looking at her with a firm but calm gaze. "Different?" he asked, his voice calm but loaded with meaning. "Could you explain what you mean by that?" Ashley laughed nervously, trying to keep her composure. "Oh, don't take it the wrong way. It's just that, well, our audience generally has a more traditional profile. It's rare to see someone with your style around here." The restaurant suddenly fell silent. Customers at nearby tables stopped their conversations, attentive to what was happening. Ashley seemed satisfied with the attention she was receiving, believing she had control over the situation. Jackie remained silent for a few moments, holding her gaze firmly without a trace of anger. Then finally she spoke. "You're right. Maybe I should deal with this differently." Ashley blinked, confused by the enigmatic answer, but before she could say anything, an unexpected presence appeared. The arrival of the manager. The restaurant manager, a middle-aged man with impeccable posture and an air of authority, entered the room and quickly noticed the tension in the atmosphere. His eyes scanned the room until they locked onto Jackie, and his expression changed dramatically. He hurried over to the table, completely ignoring Ashley, and said in a respectful tone, "Mr. Chan, I didn't know we'd be receiving your visit today. Please let me know how I can make your experience more pleasant." Ashley's face instantly paled. The blood seemed to drain from her face as she stared incredulously at the manager and then at Jackie. Jackie kept her smile discreet and replied calmly, "Thank you, but there's nothing to worry about. I'd just like to have a quick chat with your team, if that's not a problem." The manager, visibly tense, nodded quickly. "Of course, Mr. Chan. Whatever you need." He cast a stern glance at Ashley, who remained paralyzed, completely lost by the turn of events. Jackie then turned to her and said, in a firm but polite tone, "Now, let's talk about how we should treat people." The room fell completely silent. All eyes were fixed on Jackie's table, waiting anxiously to see what would happen next. Ashley, who until then had believed she was in control of the situation, froze. His mind was working frantically to understand what was going on. "Mr. Chan? Does he know the manager? What's going on?" The manager snorted, and with a serious expression, turned to Ashley. "Ashley," he said, his voice laden with authority, "what did you think? That this customer, who happens to be one of the owners of this restaurant, didn't deserve the same respect as anyone else?" Ashley's expression turned even paler. I didn't know," she stammered. "I thought—" She hesitated, realizing that any explanation would only make her situation worse. Jackie intervened, her voice soft but firm enough to echo through the hall. "I don't need to tell you who I am to be treated with dignity." He paused and looked around, making sure everyone could clearly hear his next words. And frankly, it shouldn't matter. Everyone who walks through these doors, no matter what they look like, deserves to be greeted with respect. The entire restaurant held its breath. Discreet murmurs arose among the customers, many of them shocked by the revelation that Jackie Chan was one of the owners of the place. The couple monitoring the situation smiled, pleased with the turn of events. The elderly man, who had previously expressed disapproval, nodded slightly in approval. Meanwhile, Ashley could barely lift her eyes from the floor. At a nearby table, a man whispered to his wife, "I knew he was different. He has a presence that is impossible to ignore." Ashley, now completely speechless, realized that everything she had tried to do to diminish Jackie had only highlighted his true greatness, and, ironically, what she had feared most was about to happen. She was no longer the one in control of the situation. The woman at the nearby table nodded and murmured, "Look how he's handling it. How elegant." "I hope she's learned something from this," other customers whispered among themselves, some clearly embarrassed that they hadn't intervened earlier. The atmosphere in the restaurant was tense, but a sense of expectation hung in the air. Everyone wanted to see how the situation would turn out. The manager turned to Ashley, his expression a mixture of frustration and restraint. "Ashley, I want a detailed explanation of your behavior as soon as your shift is over. For now, step away from this desk. I'll take over from now on." Ashley opened her mouth to protest, but the manager's firm gaze made her swallow her words. With a sudden movement, she turned and hurried away, avoiding the disapproving looks of the customers. Jackie took a deep breath and stood up slowly. He looked around, realizing that all eyes were on him. With a calm but authoritative tone, he began to speak. This restaurant was founded with the idea of being a place where everyone feels welcome, no matter how they're dressed or where they come from. Unfortunately, that didn't happen today. But I believe we can learn from this experience. The customers remained silent, absorbing his words. The manager, standing next to Jackie, looked both uncomfortable and amazed at the way he was handling the situation. Jackie turned to him and concluded, "I want to meet with the whole team as soon as the restaurant closes. There are some important things we need to discuss." The manager promptly nodded. "It will be done, Mr. Chan. Once again, I apologize for everything." Jackie sat down again, and the restaurant gradually returned to normal, although the customers were still muttering about what they had just witnessed. Hours later, the restaurant was empty. The staff had gathered, forming a semicircle around Jackie Chan, who stood in the center of the room, his presence dominating the space. He looked at each of them, his eyes conveying serenity but also firmness. "We all make mistakes," he began, his voice firm and resonant. "But what really matters is what we do after those mistakes." He paused briefly, allowing his words to sink in. "What we saw today went far beyond simple bad service. It was a reflection of hasty judgments, hidden prejudices, and a lack of empathy. But I want you to understand something. This is not a condemnation. It's an opportunity." His eyes found Ashley, who was sitting at the back of the room, tears streaming down her face with regret. "Ashley," he said, in a gentle but firm tone, "I know that what happened today was a mistake, and mistakes can be corrected. What really matters is the effort to improve and the willingness to learn. What you choose to do from now on will define who you are." Ashley looked up, quickly wiping away the tears. I've never thought like that before," she admitted, her voice shaking. "I was so focused on the image of the restaurant, on maintaining standards, that I forgot what really matters. I forgot that each person has value regardless of how they present themselves. I promise, Mr. Chan, I'll change." Jackie smiled slightly and replied, "That promise isn't for me, Ashley, it's for yourself. Real change comes from within. And if you need help along the way, I'll be here." She nodded vigorously, a mixture of relief and determination reflecting on her face. "Kindness is not in the grand gestures," Jackie continued, now turning to the rest of the team, "but in the small choices we make every day, treating each person as someone who matters, because they really matter." He walked slowly around the room, putting his hands in his pockets and reflecting aloud. We all carry invisible battles. The person who looks out of place could be living one of the worst days of their life. The person who doesn't dress up to standards may have achieved more than you realize. And sometimes, a small gesture of kindness can change everything. The employees remained silent, many visibly moved, while others stared at the floor, reflecting on their own attitudes. Ashley took a deep breath and, with a new sparkle in her eyes, said quietly, "I understand. I really do." The manager looked at Jackie with renewed respect. "Minus Mr. Chan, your message was clear. We're going to make sure that Lumiere reflects the values you envisioned for this place. Thank you for reminding us of that." Jackie just nodded, with a quiet smile. As they left the restaurant, the bright lights of Beverly Hills reflected off the busy streets. Jackie stopped for a moment, looking at the entrance to the Lumiere with a slight smile on her face. What happened that night wasn't just about a restaurant or a poorly served customer. It was about something much bigger. The importance of creating a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. And with that thought, he went on his way, certain that sometimes the most significant changes begin in the most unexpected places. As he walked through the brightly lit streets of Beverly Hills, Jackie reflected on the words he had spoken that night, but above all, on the message he hoped everyone would take away with them. If she could leave just one lesson for those who witnessed that experience, it would be this: in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. True strength lies not in judging others, but in accepting them, in recognizing them as human beings with their own struggles, dreams, and stories. And above all, Jackie knew that it is the small daily choices that shape not only the world around us, but also who we are as human beings. Every gesture, no matter how small, has the power to create a lasting impact. This was the inspiring story of how Jackie Chan turned a situation of prejudice into a powerful lesson in empathy and respect. But now I want to know, have you ever been in a situation where you were judged on your appearance? How did you deal with it? Leave your opinion in the comments. We want to hear your story. If this story has touched you, don't let this message die here. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness always wins. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more inspiring stories that show us that small attitudes can change lives. Want to continue being inspired? Click on one of the videos that appears on the screen and discover more touching stories that will warm your heart. See you in the next video.